Right, all you listeners of the madness and anyone lucky enough to catch this show on their AM/FM dials, welcome to yet another unpredictable, unplanned, unseasoned, and now, under that last Easter egg you couldn't find during that Easter egg hunt of Madness edition of Under the Radar. I am your host from the East Coast, DJ Smokey, and seeing the fact that we're here to bring some post-Easter madness to kick off your last full week of this month of Fools, we might as well waste no time and explain to you guys what's going to happen on this very special post-Easter madness edition of Under the Radar. Because we kick things off with what happened during the second night of the biggest, grandest stage of them all from Sin City of WrestleMania from Las Vegas, Nevada. And I almost called it Los Angeles again. Next up on the plate, we go ahead and check out some screenshots and whatnots from the Twitterverse from this past weekend and beyond for another edition of the Four Squared Delight. And speaking of the beyond, folks, we find out what sort of crazy games we can find from the fifth dimension door we opened right next to that rabbit over in the corner for a post-Easter edition trip to the Indy Zone. And yes, Carla the Maestro, you're not mistaken. Those are rabbits bouncing next to that door. I don't get it either. And speaking of people bouncing like a rabbit or more or less ending up broken like the Easter egg during that Easter egg hunt you missed this past weekend, we find out which one of you crazy stunners out there is most likely gonna end up getting broken during a spring break that's passed us by for another edition of the Wild World of Stunts. And apparently, according to Carla the Maestro, their head cracked like an egg for one of the stunts. I do not want to see that at all. At all. Then finally, last but not least, and hopefully before those infomercials flicker on and off your television sets, we wrap up the show yet another edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. I guess with that said, I might as well tell everybody at home to get ready as Carla the Maestro kicks up the beats and cranks out the tunes. And while you're getting ready, ease back those recliners, because it's time for us to get ready to fly low as we go under the radar. Right, all you listeners of the madness, and especially you wrestling fans out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And now it's time for us to find out what happened during the second night of WrestleMania 41 from Las Vegas, Nevada. And the first match to take place on night 2 of WrestleMania would see none other than Io Sky going one-on-one against Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair for the Women's World Championship. Now, for those who don't know, this would be the second time that Io Sky would bring gold to the dance at WrestleMania. And at the same time, with another very cool, innovative form of her entrance, having green for her Titantron this year. Ooh. Ah. And alongside with that, we would see Bianca Belair making her way to the ring with a custom cape with roses on it and a gold suit, as well as some jump ropers and her stepdaughter enjoying the entrance for this year for WrestleMania. And if you're wondering what sort of outfit that we would see from Rhea this year, well, a very cool looking skeleton crown that she would wear along with a very interesting version of a Hellraiser outfit, is the best way we could possibly describe it. But besides the oohs and ahs of the different outfits featured at WrestleMania, during this said match where action would go back and forth in a waylay of a melee, would see not only a double Rana reverse style by Io for 2 sets of near falls, even seeing a razor's edge by Rhea directly into Bianca Belair using Io as a weapon to get a near fall. Then a nasty version of a spear on Io after she would celebrate a successful dropkick, leading into a 450 splash, still for near fall. Riptide, still a near fall. A modified version of the KOD and an over the moonsault counter that led to it, only for a near fall thanks to Rhea Ripley breaking it up. But then we would see, to wrap up this match, a poison Rana from the Genius of the Sky getting countered into an inverted Alabama slammer to the post, only for Rhea to hit or get hit with the braid of Bianca Belair, then hit with a KOD. Now you think 3 seconds later, Bianca would still be undefeated at WrestleMania in championship competition and in matches? Well, unfortunately no, cause the streak would end with an over-the-moon salt and with Io Sky once again proving that you need to keep your eyes on her in a triple threat match, who would still be your women's world champion via pinfall. And I got a feeling both of them are probably kicking themselves in the head for taking their eyes off of Io. Not a wise move. Not a wise move at all. And the next match to take place at this grand stage of WrestleMania would see the Scottish Terminator Drew McIntyre going one-on-one against Damian Priest. Now, I called Drew McIntyre the Scottish Terminator for this Sin City street fight, but in reality, I could call him a Doomslayer. And why? Because Drew McIntyre will be wearing a Doomslayer-like outfit cape to celebrate the brand new Doom game that's going to be coming out this year. And how would Damian Priest counteract with that? Well, he couldn't be a Doom Slayer, but he could get Kerry King from the group Slayer to perform his entrance for this year with a very cool black and gold outfit with hell wings included. And with this hell and doom theme surrounding this match that's filled with plenty of violence, how you think it would go? Well, at first, Drew McIntyre, being Drew McIntyre, would take a selfie during the beatdown of Damian Priest during this match and would be able to hit a Claymore after a flying chair that nearly missed his face for a near fall, only for a Claymore to get countered into a choke slam for a near fall and a chair wrapped around the head of Damian Priest during that moment too, only to see a razor's edge counter from a white noise from upstairs for Damian Priest to get a near fall off of that. Future shock on the steel stairs, still nothing. Even Damian Priest trying to go old school, but I got a feeling a bad move on his behalf, because as he was going old school, next thing you know, Damian Priest would get pushed off the top rope and into the 2 tables that were stacked outside that we completely forgot to mention that Drew McIntyre set up earlier in the match. And after that said table fall that we would see, folks, this match will come to an end again in 3, 2, 1. Wait, no countdown for it? Well, instead of showing off, he would Claymore the head right off the shoulders of Damian Priest with a steel chair in the corner next to his head, and most likely bells ringing in the head of Damian Priest for Damian Priest to lose this match to the Scottish Terminator Doomslayer via pinfall. And for Drew McIntyre to finally get revenge after a year worth of just setbacks thanks to Drew, or more or less to Damian Priest. I would say thanks to Drew McIntyre, but in reality, really is his own fault. But I digress, because the next match to take place on this grand stage of WrestleMania would be the fatal four-way match for the Intercontinental Championship, seeing Braun Breaker going one-on-one against Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, and Cero Miedo himself, Penta, who would dress up in Green Ranger's colors tonight. Nice! And Dominic Mysterio once again wearing a cool white mask that almost got stuck on his head that gave the announcers a bit of a chuckle. For Finn Balor to wear a yellow sack on his head reminding me of one of the bad guys that would be featured in, I guess, Resident Evil? Yeah, I guess it's the best answer I can give. He does look like a Granados with that thing on his head, but either way you look at it, folks, we would see Braun Breaker making his way to the ring wearing the Steiner colors for half his tights. And during this match, outside of the fashion show we just gave you, we would see a show of, well, violence. Because Dominic Mysterio would get speared out of his shoes for a near fall thanks to Finn Balor. Even a drop toe hold into the head of one Finn Balor thanks to Dominic Mysterio, leading into a headstand drop kick by Penta, still for a near fall thanks to Finn. And even a break-in Steiner during this match to Finn Balor for a near fall, as Dominic Mysterio would try to get Finn Balor with a 619 and would get stomped out like a wildfire. Only for Penta to come back with a Penta driver on Finn for a near fall thanks to Braun Breaker, who would break it up. And we would even see a Mexican destroyer during this contest that would lead to a near fall as well too, thanks to none other than the interfering member of the Judgment Day of Carlito. And what would happen to Carlito for that? Well, folks, if you thought that spear on Monday Night Raw was bad, just imagine one on the grandest stage at them all. Cause Braun Breaker, I don't know if this man is human or not, would leap 15 feet in the air from one announce table to the other, Super Mario Brothers style, and spear the ever-living daylights flag tag right out of Carlito and right out of his shoes to get back into the ring to get speared, only for Braun Breaker to receive a 619, for Finn Balor to take out Dominic and hit none other than Braun Breaker with a coup de grace that would lead to a near fall. But look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Dominic Mysterio flying in the air with a frog splash, Viva La Razzaing his way directly into history and finally getting a win at WrestleMania, winning the Intercontinental Championship via pinfall. And Dominic Mysterio celebrating with cheers and plenty, and not to mention holding on to the same championship that a certain Guerrero would be able to hold on to as well too. Nice! Oh yeah, not to mention that also Rey Mysterio would also be Intercontinental Champion in his career as well too, if I remember correctly. Could be wrong. But outside of Dominic Mysterio getting cheers and celebrating with the gold in Vegas, the next match to take place on this said pay-per-view would see none other than Randy Orton in his 20th WrestleMania with the classic blue and gold tights to celebrate his 20-year anniversary on the grand stage, only for, of all people, to answer the call, Joe Hendry. What? I don't remember anybody calling Joe Hendry's name, but apparently his name was called. And he would be the one to challenge against the Viper, and during this match, we would see Joe Hendry surprising Randy Orton again with a roll-up for near fall. Even pulling off a fall-away slam, and would do a turn and smile at the camera, but oh, look out, buddy, look out! And no, he didn't look out enough time, because he would get hit with an RKO from out of nowhere for Randy Orton to win his 20th WrestleMania anniversary in the center of the ring via pinfall. Or more or less his 20th WrestleMania he'll be able to participate in, because I'm pretty sure he's been around the block a lot longer than that. And after the match was over, he would shake the hand of Joe Hendry and would immediately raise his hand letting him know, hey, you were here at WrestleMania. Congratulations. You gave it one hell of a go, kid. But wait, what's that on your shirt? Bam! Another RKO as Randy Orton would do a turn and the classic Orton pose afterwards to mock Joe Hendry. Man, if anybody had told me Joe Hendry would have been at WrestleMania fighting Randy Orton, yeah, that's not on my bingo card, man. Not on my bingo card at all. And it would be announced at this said pay-per-view, folks, that the next pay-per-view that's gonna be in Vegas would be not only Money in the Bank, but also Worlds Collide on July 7th of 2025. Nice! And we'll try to catch both of them, but definitely Money in the Bank to see where the future lies. And speaking of where the future lies, folks, and where it's gonna be, we would see the next match of none other than Logan Paul going one-on-one against the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. And Logan Paul, being humble as he would be, would decide to have a selfie entrance with a drone, having the drone fly above head, and 9 different panorama shots of him making his entrance for WrestleMania for this year. Only for the phenomenal one AJ Styles to don the blue and white for a phenomenal entrance. And during this said contest, outside of phenomenal entrances that I got a feeling would get somebody 1,000 or at least 1 million views on TikTok, we would see Logan Paul pulling off a Paul from Grace frog splash for a near fall. Even an overbomb during this match didn't finish it off. I'll say corner moonsault, still for a near fall. Brainbuster by the phenomenal one, near fall. A rolling senton and a lion salt from downtown on the other side of the ring. Still a near fall for Logan Paul. It rhymes. Even a buckshot lariat, still no good. Tower hacker powerbomb pin by said AJ Styles, still nothing. Only for Logan Paul to pull off a stolen finisher move similar to what they would do in the recent WWE games, for AJ Styles to respond back with his own Styles Clash that did not lead to a pinfall, and yeah, that's just bad. That's real bad, man. But speaking of bad things, folks, next thing you know, Logan Paul's friend Jeff would show up and would try to give the brass knucks to Logan Paul. But Karrion Kross there would take the brass knuckles out of the hands of Jeff and would immediately tell AJ Styles, you need to win this, man, just to prove for us guys that we're out of this business. You need to crack them and win this for us. Only for AJ Styles to refuse to do so, try to go for a phenomenal forearm, get caught with a knockout shot and a pulverizer for Logan Paul to win this match for the YouTubers via pinfall. Ouch. Ouch. Out of all the losses during this pay-per-view, that one probably may have hurt the worst. And Carlin the Maestro said you might want to rescind that comment, because the next match to take place on this said pay-per-view of WrestleMania would see none other than Laya Valkyria going 2-on-1 against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And during, or at least before this match, Liv and Raquel showing up in Britney Spears red for their entrance. For Laya Valkyria to have a cool entrance with gold and white wings, and she would flap her way directly to the ring to announce her partner, none other than the returning man herself, Becky Lynch. And Becky Lynch as her partner during this match, would it lead to gold? Well, in the opening contest during this match, we would see Laya Valkyria getting the daylights beaten out of her, not only getting tossed off the top rope into a boot for a near fall, 3 Amigos and a Shining Wizard for a near fall, a spinning power slam during this match, still a near fall, only for Becky Lynch to finally get in and pull off a counter to the, or more or less Liv Morgan countering the disarmor for a near fall, for her to get the disarmor locked in fully for Raquel to stop it. only for an oblivion to strike Becky Lynch like it did in that steel cage match, but this time didn't lead to the win. But what would be a manhandle slam for this Hodgepodge team that caught the Hodgepodge team by surprise, and for Laya Valkyria to become a dual champion at WrestleMania via pinfall. In a very amazing way, too, and congratulations to Lyra. But after that, folks, we would hear the glass shatter and the Texas Rattlesnake making his way down the Vegas strip ramp of WrestleMania, and would crash his ATV right directly into the barricade. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Scaring the daylights and most likely hurting a girl in the front row to announce that there was well over 63,226 for the people in attendance tonight at WrestleMania, and in total for a two-night stand, 124,693,000 fans in attendance. And as Stone Cold would walk up the ramp and his ATV be towed away by WWE management, we would head into our main event of WrestleMania, which would see none other than John Cena going one-on-one against Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes would watch onward as John Cena would make his way to the ring first with no fanfare, no colors, no nothing. Just walking down to the ring with a Vegas-style towel, claiming that his last time is now for the American Nightmare to make his way to the ring, most likely with the Nitro Circus motorbikers on the ramp for Cody Rhodes to have this cool-looking helmet on. Nice! But outside of the cool entrances, folks, during this match, action will go back and forth and would see Cena picking up the pace with a tornado DDT for near fall. Cody Cutter still not winning this match. Attitude adjustment for near fall, even an AA reversal during this match for near fall. An avalanche attitude adjustment, still nothing. Even a powerbomb reversal from the top rope from a leg drop reminding me of John Cena's match against Batista leading into SummerSlam, still for near fall. As Cody would go to the top rope and hit a super Cody Cutter, still nothing. And even a crossroads that would get countered into an attitude adjustment and an STFU, as Michael Cole would call it, leading into a knock directly into the ref for Cody Rhodes to hit another crossroads, but the ref not there to count it. Cena, who would take this turnbuckle pad off and send Cody Rhodes into it on two separate occasions that would lead to an attitude adjustment, still in near fall. Only for, of all people, to come out Mr. Autotone himself, Travis Scott, for what reason, I know not, and according to Call of the Maestro, most likely on the orders of The Rock, for a crossroads to be struck on Travis Scott, for Cody Rhodes to deliver that receipt, but for Travis Scott to actually take out the referee prior to that crossroads. But then, while all of that was going on behind him, Cena with the World Championship in hand, trying to strike Cody, for Cody to win the championship back in his hands and try to hit Cena with it, but Cena would beg off the fact of him using it for Cody to restrain himself and make possibly one of the biggest mistakes of his championship reign, allowing John Cena a chance to get back to it, especially a desperate man looking to beat Ric Flair's quote-unquote record, and would instead break the roads of Cody, or more or less his family jewels, and then would hit him with the championship, and 3 seconds later, lo and behold, according to the announcers, but not to me, John Cena would finally beat the 16-time record of one Ric Flair of world title wins via pinfall. And with fans somewhat chanting, others booing, and several in disgust, including me included, would watch onward as John Cena would make his way up the ramp, pyro galore, celebrating with Travis Scott to become a 17-time champion and retire with the championship in hand to close out WrestleMania for this year. Ugh. And join us next time, folks, when in less than 3 weeks' time, probably less than that from the last time we checked, we'll be back into your homes with another pay-per-view in the form of Backlash from St. Louis, Missouri, home of the Viper, Randy Orton. And join us next year when we report on our 25th WrestleMania in the form of WrestleMania 42 from New Orleans, Louisiana on April 7th and 8th of 2026. And before you say it seems like a long way away, trust me, the way the world works in WWE, it could be here before you know it. And I guess with that said, folks, I think it's time for us to head back into that music as we go grab a glass of water. And when we return, we'll be back with more madness than you could shake a stick at as Underwear rolls on right after this. So don't get lost in that madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Alright, all you listeners of the madness, welcome back to Under the Radar. And two things, folks. But one about WrestleMania this year, absolutely incredible. And the fact that Cross went darn near nuclear this past weekend after not being featured on the card. Yeah, I got a feeling the Raw after WrestleMania is going to be insane. And secondly, on top of all of that, yeah, the fact that we were able to have two shows with two different nights of WrestleMania instead of combining them into this show was something truly incredible. And according to Caller the Maestro, during the intro when they were waving their hands in the background telling us to include something, yeah, we almost forgot. Because it's time for us to take out our left-handed scissors to cut out some very interesting newspaper clippings from this past Easter weekend for a very special We Just Added to the Show edition of yesterday's news. And in our first yesterday's news story, and an exciting news for you fans out there looking for a mashup of the Tales of the Tape from none other than Eric Minnesota. It looks like this year he decided to go back to work and bring us the Tales from the Tape for this year. Now, I missed it for the past 2 years, but I always wondered, does he even still create them? But I got my answer this past week with this incredible Tales from the Tape of a remix and mashup of all the competitors competing this weekend at WrestleMania 41. And yeah, the fact that he was able to mash up all of them successfully like this, I hope in the near future we get clearance to play the whole remix tape for you fans at home. But until then, I recommend you head on over to his YouTube page, only known as Eric Minnesota, to check it out for yourself. And be on the lookout for Mashup Day, which I do believe takes place on August 1st, if I remember correctly. And we might do a report on that as well, too. And in other news, and more or less yesterday's video game news, for you fans out there who wanted to check out none other than, and according to Caller the Maestro, R-Truth, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gaming, Sheamus, Michin, Dakota Kai, and others duking it out in 2K25 this year in the world of Up, Up, Down, Down, well, I have some good news for you. Because it's been announced this past week that they would have a 2K25 showdown with all of the people we mentioned before, with the captains of Agent 00 and Chris Next Door. Wait a minute, Agent 00? I always thought I was the only 00 Agent 0012, but apparently there's more of them out there. except that this one only has 2 zeros and no 12 afterwards. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out who got the better of who on the sticks in the world of WWE, then you can go ahead and check it out on the YouTube page of one man only known as Up Up Down Down to check it out for yourselves. And as a bit of a heads up, I almost didn't recognize Tommaso Ciampa because he shaved off that iconic beard. Yikes! That means he might get that t-shirt changed if he shaved the beard off. Well, before we figure out what sort of merch Tommaso Ciampa's gonna come out with next now with the beard gone, in other yesterday's news, and more or less music in the style of news. For you fans out there who always wondered what the classic Whitney Houston song of I Wanna Dance With Somebody would sound like if Killswitch Engage got behind it, well, Anthony Vincent and Josh Rez would show you what it would be like. And in the way that it was performed, I would have to say the name of the title of this song is I Wanna Dance With This Fire That Burns. Oh yeah, I guess that's the best title we could come up with for it, but the fact that he was able to pull this off is absolutely awesome. Now, I wonder in the near future if he's going to do a Whitney Houston version of the classic Killswitch Engage song of either My Curse, The Arms of Sorrow, or possibly of End of Heartache. And I think I know a couple of singers out there who would love to step up to the plate to try to sing it like Whitney Houston. And Carl and the Maestro looking in a Rolodex for it as well, too. Yeah, keep searching. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out what sort of awesome what-if scenarios he's got up his sleeve next, including the one we just mentioned, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as 10-Second Songs to check it out for yourselves. And to keep the music what-if scenario yesterday news alive, folks, for you fans out there who always wondered if Incubus would ever write Digital Bath by the Deftones, what would it sound like? Well, Matt Glocky would be able to answer that question for you at home. And the way that it would sound is pretty cool. And the last time I would hear him do an Incubus song that on a what-if scenario would be, I do believe, System of a Down's Aerials in the style of Incubus, which is nuts. So now I think in the near future I would love to hear if Incubus did Hole in the Earth by the Deftones, because I got a feeling it would have a cool sound to it, and hopefully we can play it on the air one day. And Carl and the Maestro making some phone calls to try to make it happen. All right? And if you guys want to go ahead and check out this musical what-if scenario for yourselves from the Deftones in the style of Incubus, then you can go ahead and check it out on the YouTube page of one man only known as Matt Glocky to check it out for yourselves. And as a little bit of a heads up for you fans out there, the Fantasy Covers Volume 4 is officially out right now for you to check out on his website. Nice! And in other yesterday's news, and more or less kill count yesterday's news, and something we forgot to mention this past Friday, which, yeah, my bad, we were in mania mode and we completely forgot to mention it, but for you fans out there who always wanted to see the original Maniac that didn't feature Elijah Wood, well, the kill count's got you covered. Because this week they would do a kill count for the original Maniac that came out in 1980, which I'm still trying to find a VHS tape to watch that said film, but trust me, it is a very hard find, and we might try to find it by Halloween. Hopefully. That or we just find a whole bunch of indie movies to just talk about for the month of horror. And Carl and Maestro said, why are you thinking that far ahead? Well, it's 6 months, we'll be here before you know it. You never know, man. You never know. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out the kill count for this week from the world of dead meat, then I have some good news for you, because you can head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as Dead Meat to check it out for yourselves. And oh, before I forget, here's hoping they do a kill count for the Elijah Wood version of Maniac as well too, cause the first kill in that movie is absolutely disturbing. And Carl and the Maestro said, oh, nope, don't spoil no plans over there in the corner. You already got mad at me revealing stuff 6 months in advance. We're not gonna talk about that just yet. So keep that under your hat. And I guess with that said, folks, wraps it up for a very special post-Easter edition of yesterday's news. And I guess with that said, I think it's time for us to head back into that music and continue listening to these diamonds in the rough. And when we return, we'll be back with more madness that you can shake a stick at right after this. So don't get lost in that madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned. And we're back with the show of madness that almost cut one part of the madness out due to Mania Madness, only known as Under the Radar. And Carl and the Maestro approached me during the commercial break we had and told me, hey, are you sure you want to get rid of that one part of the show? And I said, what part are you talking about? And then they mentioned the whole thing with yesterday's news, and I said, there's no way in the world I'm gonna do that. Go bring it in there. I mean, it'll be a special surprise between me and you, but shh, don't tell nobody at home. Don't tell them at home that I added it in. Let them find out on their own. And Carl and the Maestro laughing over in the corner and said, I hope that surprise doesn't happen again, and you won't have to worry about it until SummerSlam, which should make for a pretty good picture, too. And speaking of good pictures, folks, I think it's time for us to go ahead and check out a couple of those screenshots and whatnots from the Twitterverse from this past weekend and beyond for a very special Easter weekend Fallout edition of the 4 Squared Delight that may or may not feature Easter rabbits. I'm just letting you know. And the first screenshot that we have up comes from none other than Next Indie by way of, and according to Carl and the Maestro, trying to get the developers Chubby Games with their set game of Void Breaker. And the screenshot that they provided for this week shows our Void Breaker using their void breaking abilities of not only acidic powers to tear apart the areas, but as well as using different forms of cool looking guns to tear apart blocks as well too, as well as us seeing a whole bunch of crazy messages flickering on the TV, and also a cool elevator in gunshot before they take out a whole bunch of extracurricular or extraterrestrial creatures. And Colin and Michael say, yeah, that's what they're called, as they're laughing over in the corner. And this game automatically reminds me of a combination of Red Faction Armageddon with a little hint of some of the weapons that would be featured in Borderlands. Now, here's hoping in the near future, since you've already got a fully destructible environment, that the bullets come in different elements. And Carl and Michael said you won't have to worry about that. They do. Nice. And the next screenshot that we have up, besides using different forms of elemental bullets to get the job done, comes from the Twitter page of Regular Studio with their set game of Motor Slice. And I've always wondered why in the world they decided to go with the title of that game of Motor Slice. Well, today we would get our answer, because our heroine would decide to use her motor slicing blade to stop a circular blade from hitting her, and would just send it flying right back toward the creepy helicopter that sent it, causing it to fall right out of the sky and slam right into the ground, all before the cameras could fade to black. Now, this automatically reminds me of something you would experience in Kingdom Hearts. Definitely something you would see in Kingdom Hearts, somewhere around the world that never was and near the Keyblade Graveyard. It's one of those two places from one of those two separate Kingdom Hearts games. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that not only you get a chance to repair that giant oversized helicopter, but also a chance to drive it, or salvage it for parts to help you get a cooler blade than you already do now. Cause I got a feeling you're gonna need it, especially against that giant oversized truck monster that we saw that they had in this game a while back ago. Yeah, you're really gonna need it against that. And the next screenshot that we have up, besides helicopter monsters, but does involve blades, comes from the Twitter page of Sanhid Al-Talyini, and hopefully we said that name right, with their said game of Enra. And the screenshot that they decided to provide for this week shows several different slow cut motion like shots, not only showing someone getting sliced with a dual blade attack, hit with a sword uppercut of sorts, and even hit with a tiger uppercut, taking them down a peg or two after a perfect 8-hit combination in under 20 seconds. Nice! Now, this automatically reminds me, with all the neon we completely forgot to mention that was featured in this, reminds me of a futuristic version of Ninja Gaiden. You know, a what-if scenario if he got trapped in the future and had to fight future fiends. And according to Carl and the Maestro, wouldn't that just make it Samurai Jack? You're right. You're absolutely right. I had to think about that. So here's hoping in the near future you do get Samurai Jack's sword to help you out in combat. That was a good one. And the next screenshot that we have up, besides Samurai Jack fighting his way back to the past in that game, hopefully in the future as a cameo, comes from the Twitter page of Where Winds Meet, with their said game of Where Winds Meet. And if you're ever wondering at home, where in the world does the winds meet in this game? Well, in some very fancy place that looks like Tibet with a whole bunch of tulips on the ground, seeing our monk-like friend actually practicing his powers and trying to channel the weight of the heavens with the Dharma Protector art. And would do so with not only a couple of palm strikes, but also would fly up into the air, super slow motion backflip with some form of monk showing up before the power would be unleashed to deliver a final slam attack into the ground before the cameras could fade to black. Now, for some strange reason, I'm reminded of not only Virtual Fighter with one of the fighters who probably does have that ability to summon some form of monk to deliver a final attack, but also reminded of, I would have to say Avatar: The Last Airbender for some strange reason. Now, here's hoping in the near future, speaking of airbending and elements, you have a chance to have different elemental pugilist attacks that you can pull off in this game to take somebody out with. Because you're going to need options. Because I got a feeling, and yes, Carl, in my show, I do think a dragon is going to show up and attack him. He might have the power of the Budapest within his hands, but I got a feeling something of dragon-like nature might show up and knock him off his feet. So here's hoping you get different forms of elements to take it out. And the last but not least screenshot that we have up for this week comes from none other than Evil Entity, with their said screenshot for the video game of Dart Racer Dev. Or, according to Carl and the Maestro, Dart Racer. Oh, alright. And the screenshot that we were provided with for this week would show our dart racing friends not only customizing their said dart racers, but also going through a loop-de-loop, coloring the different ships, fighting through desert and ice-like areas, all before the said title card for the game would pop up on the screen. Now, this game automatically reminds me, and they have a list up there, and at least 3 of them what I was thinking of was on here, including not only Wipeout, Star Wars Racer, and also Aero GPX. And apparently, according to them, their caffeinated included hallucinations was in this as well, too. Bravo, bravo. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this game that you can actually customize your own tracks for it. Because can you imagine that much power in your hands to customize your own tracks, especially with you indie gamers out there that would throw somebody through a loop? Yeah, I can imagine an ice loop in this track reminding me of something from Diddy Kong Racing. So, here's hoping that you can bring that to life. And if you guys and gals out there want to go ahead and check out any other cool screenshots and whatnots from the Twitterverse from this past weekend and beyond for yourselves, then you can go ahead and head on over to the indie screenshot pages of not only Octo Curio, Oliver Snyder's, Playing Indies, Indie Rhymes, Shot_Games, Next Indie, or even under the hashtag of Screenshot Saturday. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out the screenshots that we liked for this week, and check them out for yourselves for your own interpretations, then you can go ahead and head on over to our Twitter page, only known as the Agent 0012, where Carl and the Maestro decided to make a screenshot folder entitled Easter Screenshots, with a rabbit on the side of it. See, I told you there was going to be a rabbit involved, I just didn't tell you when. And apparently Carl and the Maestro covered me by giving us one now. Not bad. Not bad at all. And I guess with that said, folks, I think it's time for us to head back into that music once again. And when we return, we'll be back with another trip straight to the Indy Zone right after this. So don't get lost in that madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned. All right, all you listeners of the madness, and especially you indie game lovers out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And this week's screenshot of the week goes to none other than Regular Studio with their said screenshot from the video game of Motor Slice, and also goes to none other. And this one was a tough decision, but we narrowed it down to none other than Evil Entity with their said screenshot from the video game of Dev or Dart Racer. We keep including the dev part. Now, the reason why in the world these 2 screenshots made it in for the screenshot of the week for this week, well, for the first one, anytime you could send a weapon back to a said vehicle, monster, or creature that sent it to you in the first place and show them up by taking them out, it's always impressive to mention a part of the show. And for the second one, the reason why in the world we mention it, well, anytime you get a chance to race in a cart that you can even turn into a Star Wars race car is always something awesome, and especially racing in outer space is out of this world. And speaking of out of this world things that are about to happen a part of this show, I think it's time for us to go ahead and adjust the tie on our Rod Sterling suits and get ready to make our way through that 5th Dimension door games next to that rabbit for a special post-Easter trip straight to the Indy Zone. And look, Carl and Maestro, next to that waving rabbit, there's so many games coming in hot. Let's go grab a couple. And the first game that we have up comes from none other than the developers Clockwork Pile with their set game of Shard Punk. And And this game currently available for the low price of $13.99. But for those out there who wants to try the demo before you buy it, well, you can. And for those out there who wants the digital deluxe edition, you can get it for as low as $13.37. Or $13.37, just in case somebody thought it was $1,000. Anyway, next game we have up comes from the developers Mooniac Studios and Maniac Panda Games. Nice developer studio names, by the way, with their set game of One Last Breath. And this game currently available for a low price of $17.99. Next game we have up comes from the developers Grind Pop with their set game of the Isle of Arrows. And this game currently available for a low price of $12.99. But for those out there who wants the roguelike tower defense bundle, you can get it for as low as $19.32. Next game we have up after that comes from the developers Chatsu Entertainment with their set game of the Sands of Aura. Oh, nice name for the game. And this game currently on sale for the low price of $9.99. Not bad. And for those out there who wants the Sand of Aura Subterranean Mines of Titan bundle, you can get it for as low as $17.58. But for those who wants the RPG Collection bundle on top of that, you can get it for as low as $27.16. Not bad. Next game we have up comes from the developers Coal Powered Games with their set game of Shadows of Doubt. And this game currently available for the low price of $24.99. But for those who wants the supporter bundle, all you gotta do is pay another $5 more on top of that, $29.57. And Carl and the Maestro said that's actually $5.60 some odd cents, but all right, now you're just gonna nickel and dime me? All right, but whatever. Anyway, folks, next game we have up besides Carl and the Maestro, most likely gonna add sales tax to the next game we mention, which comes from the developers Says He's with their set game of Frail Hearts Verscone Dominion. Or Dominion? We'll go with the second one just in case, and this game currently available for the low price of $9.99. And for those who wants to try it before you buy it, well, you can. And for those out there who wants the narrative bundle, you can get that for as low as $52.16. Next game we have up after that comes from the developers Hopeful Games with their set game of Zillage, the tile maker of Granada. And this game currently available for the low price of $8.99. Next game we have up after that comes from the developers Final Screw with their set game of Tower Escape. And this game currently available for the low price of $3.99. And for those out there who wants the Tower Roguelike Bundle, you can get that for as low as $6.73. And for those who wants the Roguelike Defense Genome Guardian X Tower Escape Bundle, you can get that for as low as $17, or according to Carl and Maestro, take $10 off of that, $7.82. And for those out there who wants to try it before you buy it, well, you can, because there's a demo out for it right now. Next game after that comes from the developers Hardcore Dev with their set game of The Symbiont. And this game currently available for the low price of $19.99. Next game after that comes from the developers Thing Trunk with their set game of Hellcard. Nice name for the game. And this game currently available for the low price of $24.99. But for those out there who wants the Buy Return 2 Game Supporter Pack, you can get that for as low as $89.99. But as a little bit of a note and put in fine print, if you already own the Book of Demons in your library and want to upgrade to the Supporter Pack version, please purchase the Book of Demons to Supporter Pack upgrade bundle so you can get it. Just as a bit of a heads up. And besides that word of advice for you gamers out there who wants the full pack edition of that game, the next game that we have up comes from the developers Theory Brim with their said game of The Man Came Around. And I find it funny since Becky Lynch came around this past weekend at WrestleMania, you got this game listed. And as a bit of a heads up, you don't have to pay a dime for this game because it's absolutely free. Nice! Next game we have up after that comes from the developers, and calling the maestro with a bit of a jump roll with this one, of Glee Cheese Studios. Awesome name for the game, which the game name is A Musical Story. Glee Cheese Studios. Anyway, folks, this game currently available for the low price of $4.99 or $4.49 according to Call on the Maestro. But the Glee Cheese Bundle, you can get that for as low as $22.03. Next game we have up after that comes from the developers Rolling Glory Jam with their set game of Hello, Good Boy. And this game currently available for the low price of $3.74. Next game after that comes from the developers Pyro Shock Studios with their set game of The Anvil Saga. And this game currently available for the low price of $19.99. Next game after that comes from the developers Polycrunch Games with their set game of Falling Out. And this game currently on sale for the low price of $4.94. And the last but not least game that we have up for this week to wrap up your Easter weekend comes from the developers Luna Beat with their set game of Paranormal Detective Escape from the 80s. And this game currently available for the low price of $9.99. And make sure you have a VR helmet to play this game because you're gonna need it. And if you also want to go ahead and check out any of these cool games we mentioned for this week, plus other games that are still lurking in the fifth dimension door that we left open because we forgot the key for this week, then you can go ahead and head on over to the store.steampower page, only known as store.steampower.com, and just head on over to that said DreamHack Beyond Indie Showcase page to check out a whole bunch of games that are just out of this world. And I guess with that said, I think it's time for us to head back into that music once again. And when we return, we'll be back with another spine-tingling, back-breaking edition of the Wild World of Stunts as Under the Radar rolls on right after this. So don't touch that dial away from the madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Right, all you risk takers and backbreakers out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And now it's time for us to find out which one of you crazy stunners is gonna crack your spinal cord like an Easter egg dropped during an Easter egg hunt, or get dropped like an egg in a blade of grass, according to Carl and the Maestro, as we leap into a very special post-Easter edition of the wild world of stunts. And the first stunt that we have up comes from none other, and according to Carl and the Maestro from the Twitterverse of Big Guy Code, with their said screenshot from the video game of and apparently busted metal. And very appropriate with this, folks, because during this said screenshot, as they were blasting their way through the desert, we would see our heroine actually getting a mid-air zone, causing him to do a moonsault in mid-flight, only for him to get back into the action, pull off a 360 blast to one of the enemies, causing them to fly into the air with a barrel roll for them to land on their wheels like a glove before getting blown to smithereens. Then for our hero to wrap up his run with a very impressive power slide, leading directly into a gyroscope, causing his car to get blown to bits. But the person that did it to him would do a barrel roll before blasting out of the camera sights. Now, Carl and the Maestro and the PR department's giving this stunt a perfect 10, with a couple of the numbers singed. What happened? Apparently some of the numbers caught fire when they were out in the desert shooting this. Oh, you shot this? Apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro and the PR department, why, yes, they were there with a GoPro camera, making sure all the cars got good angles. Yeah, Kurt angle at this point. Anyway, besides that, folks, the next stunt that we have up, with Carl and the Maestro still laughing at that joke, comes from the Twitter page of Seb's Game Dev Vlog, with their said stunt from the video game of The Carters 2. And during this said stunt, we would see our said Carters in action, with our first Carter, known as Mary Sue, pulling off a version of the curtain call from Freak Style, able to land on all four wheels like what, Carl and Maestro? Like enough for our Frankenstein-like guy, who's called Mike. He doesn't like to be called Frankenstein. I keep forgetting that. Well, Mike here, getting on the said four-wheeler as well, pulling off a classic fist pump, all before landing on all four wheels like what, Carl and Maestro? Like enough. As well as several other racers pulling off wheelies, all before the cameras fade to black, showing how cool this game and stunts that you can do in it can be. Now, Carl and the Maestro and the PR department's giving this stunt a 10, and at the same time it's doing the same fist pump as we would see that Frank or Mike would do. I almost called him Frankenstein again, and I got a feeling he'll probably break me in half like a piece of stale bread if I had said it. And the next stunt that we have up, speaking of people getting broken up for things, comes from none other than, what is that, Steve the Chicken? Apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro, yes, from the video game of Slope Crashers. And this week, Steve thought he was gonna go and get some air, but one of the people there would tell him to chill out. And how, folks? Well, while he was trying to pull off some form of 360 spin in a pan, he would get frozen in a block of ice, pull off a barrel roll, slide across the ground, and then immediately fly back up into the air, but not before landing on that said pan on the ground, still in ice like what, Carl and the Maestro? Like enough. Now, Doc, is this chicken all right? It was in deep ice for at least a good 5 seconds. Is it okay? Apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro and the PR department, who's holding up the medical charts because apparently I couldn't see it past the screen, would tell me that he suffered a, I guess, freezer burn? Is that a thing? Apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro, yes it is. And the fact that they were able to actually get him back together after suffering said freezer burn is pretty impressive. So, congratulations to the bird that was able to come back from said freezer burn. Yikes. And the next stunt that we have up, and Carl and the Maestro holding up a frozen 10 in a block of ice. Where'd you get ice that quick? Apparently from the freezer. I hope you didn't use that ice I was using for the tea. Apparently they said they had their own separate ice in the fridge, but we'll get back to that in a second, folks, because the next stunt that we have up comes from none other than Hood in with their said stunt of Fuga Nova da Ponte. Now, I have no idea what it means, but I got a feeling it translates around here into cool stunt. And during this said cool stunt, we would see our said driver riding around in a cool Dodge Viper in the world of Los Santos, because I can't remember the original name of it. And according to Carl and the Maestro, a Banshee for the 900th time, for him to fly onto the said highway road and get high on the highway and barrel roll his way off the billboard sign, land on the top of the expressway, flip back onto his wheels, and land on all four of them like what, Carl and the Maestro? Like love? Now, Carl and the Maestro in the PR department is giving this stunt a perfect 10, but at the same time would inform me that this car suffered a lot of damage. And to the point where we would see not only the said windshield getting cracked, the said mirrors getting broke, and the tires almost falling off the car. Now, why you say almost? Because apparently with that one slap against the billboard, it knocked the tires back into place. Is that even possible? And Carl and Maestro telling me they're not a mechanic, so they don't know. All right. And the last but not least stunt that we have up for this week, and a case of double dipping, would come from once again Hoodim with their said screenshot or stunt from none other than Fuga Nova Maron. Now, putting this time would really put us on to some pretty cool stunts, and this time would decide to involve a parking garage in the craziest ways known possible while taking out an Ubermacht-based vehicle, only for the said car to race across the city streets of Los Santos, kickflip off the side of the impound lot, wall ride off the said police station, and land directly into the said park, where the car would spin out and slide over on the side like what, Carl and the Maestro? Like love? Now, the PR department giving this stunt a 10, and at the same time wanted to tell everybody at home that apparently the Los Santos Police Department charged that guy a whole bunch of money, an undisclosed amount too that we can't mention on the air, after they broke 16 windows while wall riding off the side of that police building. And alongside with that, they would get sued by the town for damaging the said pillar blocks that was over there. And to add more woes to this guy's case for double dipping, apparently according to the doctor, he broke his wrist after his shoulder or his arm would hit the said pillar block when it slammed in with so much impact. Are you sure he didn't break anything else? Apparently, according to the doctor over in the corner, giving me a couple of more x-rays, apparently he suffered a concussion, he broke his collarbone, he broke his shoulder, and he broke his hand as well, too. Yikes, so just the whole left side of his arm and shoulder is just pretty much shot, right? Oh, and they said his knee shot, too. Ugh. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out any other crazy stunts of people getting themselves maimed for unnecessary fame, then you can go ahead and head on over to the socialclub.rockstargames page, only known as socialclub.rockstargames.com, and check out which one of these high flyers is most likely going to get smoked out or stoned after they hit a rock or a boulder or any sort of heavy-like object that's made out of the earth. And yes, Carl and the Maestro added in as many puns as I possibly could for that one. And I guess with that said, folks, I think it's time for us to head back to that music once again. And when we return, we'll be back with another edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week right after this. So don't touch that dial away for the madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Alright, all you graveyard shift racers out there tonight, welcome back to Under the Radar. And this week's Stunt of the Week goes to none other than, and apparently according to Colin the Maestro, putting him with their said stunt of Fuga Nova Moron. And also goes to none other than Big Guy Dev with their said stunt from the video game of Busted Metal. And the reason why in the world these two stunts made it in for the Stunt of the Week for this week, well, for the first one, anytime you get somebody who's able to wall right off a police building and have enough stones to do so and manage to break his entire arm in the process with his collarbone too, it definitely deserved to be mentioned during this part of the show. And the reason for the second stunt, well, anytime you can get hit in the air with a mid-air T-bone and still come out clean for the next 30 seconds of your racing career, you definitely deserve to be mentioned during this part of the show as well, too. And not to mention getting revenge on a guy post-mortem, causing him to T-bone into the side of a cliff like Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, thumbs up in our books for that. But besides giving a thumbs up to somebody who is crazy enough to race in the Mojave Desert and at the same time able to come out clean with cool stunts, I think it's time for us to get ready to rev our engines and find out which one of you crazy track makers left a cool track inside of an Easter basket for a very special post-Easter edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. And the first track that we have up comes from the creator Evil Belgium 3 with their said track of Pace Chasers OW Track EB. Now, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this crazier than all hell race track, not only because it's a Formula One track, but due to the crazy hairpin turn that is featured during this said race. That would be checkpoint number 8, checkpoint 7, and checkpoint 6, outside of checkpoint number 3, 2, and of course checkpoint 22. Just to name a few. Now, the only tip of advice I have for you fans out there of Formula One racing is to make sure you kick this race off with medium tires. Because if you're crazy enough to go out there with hard or soft tires and bust your tires before you can get to a checkpoint or some form of pit stop, yeah, it's definitely going to cost you during this race. So get a feel for the race at first, try it out with mid tires, and you should be able to go home with the checkered flag. Now, I said should, not would. And the next track that we have up comes from none other than Didane with their said track of 5150 Seaweed 500. Now, for those wondering at home, yes, it's a play off of 420 with a little miniature lake in the center. Now, with that warning ahead of time with the miniature lake, you already know where I'm going with this one. Make sure, if you're going to try to ride the corner and next to the coast with the vehicle that you're driving with, make sure your vehicle doesn't get bogged down with you trying to beat your opponents as they try to take the high road while you take the low one. Because if you do, that will cost you during this race. And for those out there who happens to see somebody bogged in the water and run into the back of them, that might take your car out too. So beware of stuck cars, just as a heads up. And the next track that we have up comes from none other than Exhale 420 with their set track of Random All Raining Hondas. What? No wonder during the track when we played this one, there was a whole bunch of raining cars because I was confused. I was absolutely confused, but now I get it. And what am I talking about, folks? Well, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track outside of getting a chance to pick all the cars across the board that you know and love, with the exception of those weaponized vehicles you know and love so much, it's because of the said three-way cross jump that would be featured during this set track. And as a bit of a heads up and a warning to anyone out there, yeah, watch out for cars flying over your head and crashing down below you as you make your way through this race, because there's going to be a lot of them and it's going to be coming at a fast rate. So just try to watch out for cars, and when you're jumping in the air, watch out for flying cars as well too, because you might eat an aerial T-bone that will take you out during this race. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Daniel234 Sporter with their set track of Rainbow Rush. And the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track, folks, is not only because of the litany list of cars that are featured during it, but also because, as those Popsicle Zone commercials would say back in the day, the colors, Duke, the colors! And and Carl and I sure laughing over in the corner about that one. But either way you look at it, folks, the only tip of advice we have for you race fans out there is two things. One, make sure you don't get mesmerized by the colors for this said track. And the car recommendation of the Hermes and the Krieger Sports Italy and GTO cars will really help you out during this race. But as a bit of a heads up, make sure you pick a car with great handling and you should be able to win this race. Well, as long as you don't fall off this makeshift Rainbow Road off into the freeway, which will cost you during this said race. And the last but certainly not least track that we have up for this week comes from none other than Chase Bat 1 with their said track of the F60 Jetta Street Circuit. Now, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this said track, not only because he was able to get creative and include this track on the beach so you're racing in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, but also because of the cool light figure that he was able to make for the said track. Now, the only tip of advice we have for you race fans out there for this said track being a Formula One race is to make sure you start with medium tires to get a feel for this race. Now, Carl in the Mic Show says I'm a bit of a broken record when I say this, but trust me, when I say this, trust me, if you go out there with hard tires to try to get a grip on those turns, you might end up busting out your tires before you get to that pit lane. If you pick too soft of tires, you might run into a bit of difficulty as well too while taking on those said hairpin turns. And the hairpin turns of 4, 5, and of course 6, 7, and 8 during this said race, just to name a few. So start with the mid tires and work your way up, and trust me, you will get that pole position during this said race. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out any other cool tracks that we were able to include in playlist form with a couple of bonuses out there for you fans to try with your friends, then you can go ahead and head on over to the socialclub.rockstargames page, only known as socialclub.rockstargames.com, and just look up the playlist entitled Jump Fools 4 to check out all of these cool tracks and more for yourselves. And I guess with that said, folks, wraps it up for a very special post-Easter edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. And I guess with that said, I think it's time for us to head back into that music one more time. And when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Under the Radar for this week, right after this. So don't let those infomercials invade your television sets just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Well, all you listeners of the madness, seeing the fact that we're fresh out of music and those infomercials are starting to flicker on and off your television sets and we've got to get out of here before that truly happens, we might as well bring control of the television sets back to you, the listeners of the madness at home, as we bring Under the Radar for this week to an emphatic close. But don't worry, if you miss any of the madness we were able to give you for this week, we got you covered. Because you can catch this show again one more time, all the time, on our Soundcloud, Facebook, Instagram, and Live 365 pages still all named the same, only known as Music Village Radio under the hashtag Under the Radar 487. And apparently, according to Colin the Maestro, that's how many times you can recatch the show on our Live 365 page. Well, if you're lucky enough to catch it on Wednesday and Saturday and maybe Sunday. All depends on what time the madness may hit your television sets. And if you guys want to figure out all the crazy and zany things we still got prepared for this month of fools, like an Easter egg costume that Carl and the Maestro paid for that cost them $487 that we forgot to mention, then you can go ahead and check it out on our YouTube, Discord, and Twitter pages, still all named the same, only known as The Double Agent 0012. Before we head out for the night, we would like to thank, as always, you the listeners of the madness out there for listening in to a very special post-Easter Aftermath of Madness edition of Under the Radar. And if you guys and gals out there like what you heard, go out there and spread the word. You know what? Like Bugs Bunny. Yeah, the PR department knows what's wrong with this one, and they're wearing an Elmer Fudd outfit thinking I was going to mention Elmer Fudd. Don't worry, I'll be hunting wabbits very soon. And we would also like to thank you, the independent artists out there, for doing that musical goodness like you always do. And keep up the great work, guys. And here's hoping your music gets featured during a cool cartoon that will stand the test of time in the future. And why? Because we believe in you guys. That's why. That's why. And speaking of people's music we believed in to be a part of this very show, we would like to thank our musical guests for this week, none other than Carl and the Maestro, with their set songs of not only heavy radio static interference that was featured during the intro, a tour of the Vegas Strip that was featured for the WrestleMania review for this year, and of course for the song you're listening to right now of the B-Movie Metal Director's Cut that's currently wrapping things up for this week as we speak for this week's edition of Under the Radar. And like always, Carl and the Maestro, keep up the great work, and we can't wait to hear what you got coming down the tubes next. And finally, last but certainly not least, we would like to thank you, the independent gamers out there, for coming out with all those sweet video game hits, clips, tracks, and stunts that we had a chance to mention during this week's show. Like always, guys, keep them coming. And to you crazy stunners out there, congratulations. This $487 suit that's by a rabbit, it's yours. Go ahead, take it home. But make sure you don't do any flips in it. According to Carl and the Maestro, it's very top heavy. You might land on the back of your neck. And before we forget, make sure you keep those games and stuff that we mentioned before coming, because you never know what show might be lurking around the corner next. Hint, hint. Hint, hint. And I guess what everybody thanked, you guys out there, we go out. I'm DJ Smokey on behalf of Carl and the Maestro, and for this post-Easter aftermath of madness we were able to give you, saying, yeah, what's up, Doc? But most importantly, when there's smoke, there's fire. And always remember, don't you ever forget, no matter what time of day this show may air, during whatever sort of extra dose of madness we were able to pack in a post-Easter egg hunt that we happen to win, to be able to buy a giant rabbit suit with a $500 cash prize that has us acting like Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck, or any Looney Tune you could possibly think of, to help you go into the work week after an Easter weekend like no other, filled with wrestling and other crazy events from around the world that we were able to stuff into one giant oversized show that I got a feeling is gonna run over the run time that we usually run. But at the same time, we don't have no time because we only prepare for things along the lines of madness, or unprepared for them, for everybody at home to hopefully make their way through the last week of this month of Fools in a cool way with plenty of madness charged behind it, to keep flying low and stay under the radar. Good night, everybody.